Hello, welcome to the Pivotability Show. Today I have Bishoy. He is a good friend of mine that I met dancing actually when I was traveling, and we just connected, and then he became my virtual tour guide for like a week, and that was great. Our relationship has grown since then, and I'm excited to talk about his story today. So he is a curiosity-driven world traveler who grew up across 6 countries. He started his first business in primary school and has since embraced a life of freedom and flexibility as a remote contractor. Bishoy's journey is shaped by his entrepreneurial spirit, a passion for reducing suffering, and deep exploration of faith. So, let's hear your incredible story.
I appreciate the introduction and the kind words, Caroline. But yeah, when it comes to my life story, honestly, it started off back in Kuwait. That's basically where the journey started. I was born in Cairo, but pretty much moved there right afterwards. And yeah, I spent my pre-kindergarten days there, just a little wee child in these British international schools. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I definitely have some memories from those days, but very few and far in between. I just remember moving a lot. And I still remember every name of every school because I've had to review that when I was applying to my university and getting all the papers together. So that was a fun trip down memory lane. I don't know why we went to so many schools, honestly, but I do know that we moved a lot because of my dad's work. The nature of his work is very mobile, and so he had to move all around the Gulf area specifically. He works in oil and gas, or used to. Now he's retired. But yeah, and that kind of very on the move type job made it very easy for us to just be like, well, next year we're going to be in who knows which country, and you kind of just have to
Have
adapt.
you always been as social as you are now, or is this a byproduct of the fact that you had to make new friends constantly?
Good question. I think I remember spending a lot of time during school kind of reflecting on what persona I wanted to embody in each new place, in each new chapter, and each new school. So I kind of had this trial and error situation where I was just trying on different personalities and be like, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be the clown in this school, and in the other school I'm gonna be the super nerd, and in the other school I was just gonna be like the cool guy. I was just trying out all these different things, and ultimately I think I kind of settled on where I'm at today. And I think a byproduct of exploring how each character would act um, has made me just comfortable dealing with every kind of person. I would say that the people who got to know me growing up wouldn't say that I'm super extroverted or outgoing, but certainly now all of my friends would say this. This is a fact. So yeah, I think it's a byproduct. I don't think I was. I think I was a very shy kid growing up.
Yeah, I'm hearing all of this, and I think I only switched schools 3 times.
Hmm.
Yeah. And the first time that I did, I was like, oh, this is hard. Like, I had no, because I'm like really social. I didn't switch schools until I was like, what, 11 or 12. And I expected to like show up and just like make friends instantly. And that was not the case. So then whenever I had to switch schools again, I was like, this is going to be terrible. And it was a lot easier than my first switch. But I did notice that you don't create as strong of a bond whenever you're constantly moving. And then this whole persona thing, I only had one persona, and it was whenever I tried to call myself Sophia, I think, in like second or third grade, because that's my name. And,
Okay.
and I had like classmates from the previous year, and they were like, "You're not Sophia." And I was like, "Oh, that's I guess I ain't
They
Carolina from
ruined the
here on out."
illusion. The lies.
Sophia.
It's all.
So that's
Yeah.
fascinating. Did you ever switch your name, or was it just like your personality?
No, yeah, it was just the persona. I don't think I've ever got as. I mean, I know I have an alter ego online, but I think that stemmed from my deep interest in like cybersecurity. I got. I have a very obsessive kind of personality when it comes to different topics. We'll get to the whole curiosity thing. But one thing I got really curious about at one point in school was like the ethical hacking scene. And I think every kind of kid who grew up with a computer had this phase about them. Um, now we make fun of them. They're called script kiddies, but they're people who like explored computers and try to push things to the edge and see where they break. Um, and I had that phase. And so I had a kind of online persona for that phase, but I never
Okay.
went to as far as changing my name in person. I don't think I ever went that far.
Yeah,
That's pretty gutsy.
with it. Yeah, it didn't even last a full day, so that was
Fair
fun.
enough.
So you mentioned in like whenever we spoke about what you do, you mentioned that you started selling things like origami, right? What grade was this
Yeah,
in? Where did it come from? Like, fill me in.
this was back in MES. So this was back in year three, which would be primary school. Um, and yeah, I just got really obsessed with origami. I remember where the obsession started too. I was waiting for a doctor's appointment, and we were just sitting outside, me and my dad and my mom. We were just sitting outside the doctor's office waiting for our turn. And I remember one of the other patients sat there and they wanted to socialize. And so they called me over and they were like, hey, why don't you bring over a piece of paper and I'll show you something cool? And I'm like, okay. And then he put together this little origami frog and he made it jump too. And I was like, God, that's wild. That's so cool. And so that
So
experience,
you got to see it go from like a straight piece of paper to a jumping frog.
heck yeah. And that
Oh my
that
God.
spark blew my mind. It was like, oh my God, you could do this? I never knew such a thing could exist. And so yeah, I was like,
I mean,
teach me how
neither
to
did
do this
I.
now.
Okay. Okay, so he
I
taught
learned
you
how to
and
do
like
it.
the only one you did, or were you like just fascinated and you went into like multiple animals?
So I went on to learn a bunch of other stuff too, but the stuff that really caught people's eyes were the frog and the crane. The crane is really simple because it's like everyone's seen it on the cover of any origami book you've seen at a library. But the cool thing about it is it's more than just a static object. It also flaps its wings. If you do it properly, you can like pull on its tail and it'll flap its wings. It's such a cool little thing having these like dynamic origami pieces. And so yeah, I'd show them around to people, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, that's so cool!" And I'm like, "Yep, 5 pounds, hit me."
Come on with
We just
it.
yeah. So that was a ton of fun. It was, I mean, it got shut down pretty quickly because our principal was not too happy about me taking essentially kids' lunch money in exchange for a piece of paper.
It was
So
their choice.
it was their choice. I didn't force
Yes.
anybody to do it. I mean, here's the thing. I did it one day, and then I think the next day I came in like full on with a bag full of them. Like I stocked up. I'm like, I'm ready to sell. These kids are gonna love it. And then I got called into the principal. So yeah,
Right.
pretty short lived, but it gave me a taste of what it feels like to sell a product at a pretty early age.
Okay. So that was your first experience with selling a product. When was the like was there a huge gap between the next time you sold something, or did you just kind of like intermix things here and there as you were growing up and through college and stuff?
Hmm. That's a great question. I think the next time had to be in high school when I got obsessed with graphic design. I think I mentioned somewhere in the forum about wanting to uh, become a t-shirt designer because I came across a website that told you that it would like host competitions for t-shirt
Uh,
designs and the community
yeah.
would vote on them. And essentially what
Okay.
would happen is if your design got printed, you'd get $2,000 and a cut of every sale of that t-shirt. So I was like, oh my God,
It's
$2,000. That's
exciting.
amazing. That is really exciting. And this must have been back in year nine. So that would have been like end of middle school, beginning of high school or secondary school is what it's called in the British system. But yeah, and that was when I started like doing this thing online where I started to sell stuff online.
Okay. So what did you start selling once you discovered this? Um, I don't think you won, is that correct?
No, I didn't unfortunately win any of these competitions. Were cutthroat, and they had some of the most incredible designers on there. Um, but what it did show me was that they also had a forum where people could come in and request stuff. So I'd apply for those kind of gigs. And those were like
Uh,
tiny gigs, like give us a logo for $10 or 20 or $5 or whatever. Or like little posters and little wallpapers and stuff like that. And then I took this idea of being able to sell to people on forums and I started to apply it to other forums that I was interested in. So I told you I got obsessed with like cybersecurity. There
mhm.
were a bunch of online forums around that time, all around that topic. And so it's where people would like sell these scripts and whatever and vulnerabilities and all this sort of stuff. It was very, very interesting stuff to me as a kid. But yeah, I would go around those forums and they'd have a graphic design section, and these guys would just want an avatar or a little signature that goes underneath their posts, or a little design for their stores where they would sell code and other stuff to people. It's been very, very interesting. And yeah, these micro transactions of like $5-10 jobs. But
Well,
yeah,
yeah, but in high school, right? So like
yeah,
that's an appealing amount, or like an attractive amount of money, I feel. I don't know.
absolutely.
I remember being in, I think, was it middle school? And I went to work for a weekend with my brother.
Mhm.
Um, and I think his manager was like, "Oh, can you go buy something?" And like he gave him a 20, and I was like, "I'll take a 20." And he was like, "Maybe I should hire you. You're
Mhm.
cheap." So
Yeah.
no, that's awesome. So, um, where did you spend? Would you say you spent the most amount of time of your schooling in any spot? And also, you mentioned you went to British schools. Was that the whole time? Because you have a very American accent. So why don't you
Right.
sound like a Brit?
That's that's another thing that doesn't really add up is I spent most of my years in British schools with British teachers from the UK and Ireland and Scotland and so on. But blame it on Disney, I guess. I grew up with a very heavy American accent just because I had access to Disney, and we didn't really have access to Disney here in Egypt, but we did. It came with free with the cable that came with every like gated compound that we lived at. Um, and so, yeah, I just grew up obsessed with Disney and I watched a ton of it. And yeah, I think that's, that's where my American accent comes from. But
I
yeah, I
was also,
spent, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
oh no, I was saying I was also a Disney kid, and my like parents, friends, kids who were older than me would be
hmm
like, "What does she watch hours of Disney Channel? Like, this is not healthy." They'd be like, "We work, we can't help it."
What phase of Disney did you catch?
I started around Lizzie McGuire, That's So
Okay.
Raven, and
hmm
then I phased out of Disney Channel with when Life of Derek was up. So I got like the very end of Even Stevens,
hmm
um, and then I phased out like right around Life of Derek.
Okay. I
So I didn't
started
catch
around,
those and like Sweet Life on Deck. I didn't get those.
right. So I caught those. That's the place where I came in like at the reruns of That's So Raven and bang in the middle of like Hannah Montana, Sweet Life on Deck, and Sweet Life of Zack and Cody first, and then yeah, just Corey in the House. There was another one, Wizards of Waverly Place too. That was a ton of fun.
Yeah, that was way
Yeah,
past my time. I remember
but
hearing
yeah.
about it. I was like, what weird show is that? That's not Disney. Yeah, it was. I just grew
That's,
up.
yeah, it's like that's not my Disney. That's
Yeah,
not the
like
Disney I grew up watching.
stuff.
Yeah. So right after high school, uh, I had a big decision to make, right? And that's the decision of what college I want to go to. And that was a really, really interesting phase because it was the first time I think my parents ever gave me full responsibility of such a big decision over my life. Um, I wanted to attend these big fancy universities. All my friends were applying to MIT and Stanford, and most of the friends I grew up with ended up graduating from University of Pennsylvania or McGill or a bunch of other international universities. So I was in the same classrooms, and uh, I thought, I could apply. I'm surrounded by extremely smart people, and we're helping each other grow. So why not? Um, and then kind of reality hit when I uh, told my parents that I wanted to do this. And my dad was just very brutally honest about it. He's like, well, here's the thing. I'm about to retire very, very soon. And, you know, I don't really want you to graduate with debt. So the idea of starting your life off with debt, was a big no-no for him. And he was just very heavily against it and wanted me to avoid that at all, by all means. So he gave me the offer. He's like, well, look, we can go back home. We can apply to universities in Egypt and you'll finish your 5-year degree. It'll more or less be the same. You'll learn the same foundations. You'll get the same kind of starting point as most other people. And then if you're good enough, you can apply to master's programs abroad. And yeah, you could do that. And anybody, at any rate, your employers will only ever care about the last university on your resume. They won't really care about what you did for your bachelor's if your master's is from Stanford or whatever. So if you really wanted to, just do your bachelor's in Egypt. That's a 5-year degree. And it's a 4-year degree in the US, but we have a preparatory year tacked on at the beginning. So it's a 5-year degree for us. And you can apply to any masters afterwards. And he's like, if you want, you can apply to the US or UK or wherever you want to go, but you're going to be on your own. You have to work part-time. You have to get a scholarship, like do your thing. I'm just not going to be able to financially support you.
Mm-hmm. Did you know what you wanted to major in already?
Yeah, I was very heavily invested in design at that point, but I also knew that I was very interested in tech. So I knew I wanted something to do with engineering. I didn't know what form of engineering I wanted to major in, what department or whatever, what school. Um, but I knew it had to be a mix of like technical and somewhat creative, and yeah, it had to have a little bit of both. Um, yeah, and I ended up studying communications and digital electronics. So it was a lot more
Okay.
hands-on hardware and like circuitry
Okay.
and like mobile networks and computer networks and that sort of stuff. I would have thought I was going to do computer science at that point,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess yeah, engineering in Egypt at least is way more prestigious just because it's held in a different regard, I guess. And so at that point, when the option was between engineering and computer science, my parents really strongly recommended I do engineering. And yeah, I took computer science related classes at every opportunity I got for my electives.
Okay. So whenever your dad told you this, what was your like initial reaction? And how long did it take you to process and make a decision on what you wanted to do?
I was rebelling pretty hard. I knew that I wanted to apply to these universities, but um, like I had to make a decision fairly quickly because my school had already put me on what they call the Oxbridge track. So British school wants you to go to Oxford or Cambridge. So they have a special track for students who might get the grades needed to apply for those universities, where they kind of hammer you with way too many subjects during your AS and A level courses. So that's year 12 and 13. And so during the time when I had to make the decisions for that, I enrolled in like 5 AS level courses. and the plan was to continue on with 4 A-level courses so that I can apply to Oxbridge. And then about midway through the year, so about 6 months later, we had the conversation and we went to Cairo, and we applied to the university. We at least gave them a hint. We applied kind of semi-formally. But really the applications would start once your final grades are in. So it's like an expression of interest
In Cairo.
in Cairo. And
Okay.
at that point, I still hadn't kind of made up my mind. It was like, let's just do this, like, at least so you have a backup plan.
Okay.
And in my mind, I still had a year, right? Because by my educational standard, we would finish year 12, then year 13, then apply to university. Whereas for universities in Egypt, all they needed were 12 years of education, and you only needed a maximum of like a 1 or 2 AS level courses to apply. So we cleared the bar pretty easily for the Egyptian universities, and it was just a matter of like submitting papers and waiting on the grades. So we did that. And at that point I was like talking to all of my professors, and my professors were hard, like really discouraging me from doing the Egyptian university.
Okay.
Particularly one psychology professor that I had, God bless his heart. He was an absolute sweetheart. I really loved learning from him. But yeah, he was really adamant against me going to the universities in Egypt. But yeah,
How did you
honestly,
feel about this being an option at all?
it was honestly, I'm not sure how I felt besides just a little confused and a little weary that like my potential would be ruined if I go to these Egyptian universities that are looked at as like second rate for these international professors that I admired so much, right? My teachers there in my schools back in Dubai and in Saudi Arabia, where I finished my high school education, they were like top of the line professors, and they worked with some of the best students out there. They got their students into the best universities. So I really looked up to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so having them be so heavily against the decision, it just weighed on my conscience a lot. So I was like,
Yeah.
am I making a bad decision here? Like, what are the repercussions really? Um, is it as difficult to recover as they're saying it is? Because to my dad, it was pretty straightforward. It's like, just do your bachelor's. You'll be able to apply to any master's degree anyways. And yeah, it's smooth sailing from there.
Oh, I know that certain schools have like a certain reputation, and I'm sure there's reasons, but in the end, I think when you look at the curriculums, like if you're getting the information, you're getting the information. I think going to more prestigious schools gives you a better network. But as far as like the education itself goes, I don't know. I would like my academic background is not very extensive, but I went to a community college and I went to a 4-year college that is a big name in Texas. Um, and I was like, if I feel like learning, I will learn, and if I don't, then I won't. But like the information was all the same, and actually, some of my favorite classes were in the community college because the teachers were just so driven to help their students. Um, So what I did notice a huge difference in was the network. Like the network makes a big difference.
Of course. And that was the big thing that I think I realized at some point, and it made the decision a lot easier when I decided to go on with the applications to the Egyptian university. Um, is that I realized that the education itself was not the deciding factor, but rather the people I'd be rubbing shoulders with.
Mm-hmm.
And to that end, I kind of realized that, with my international background, I already had the itch to kind of travel abroad and network with people abroad. So, and I feel like I'm very lucky to obviously speak like a native, even though I'm not from an English speaking country. And so that's obviously given me a huge leg up um, over a lot of my peers in these schools. So I felt like I at least had my way back into the international scene if I really wanted to, and this kind of setback, so to speak, um, wouldn't be as damaging as everyone thought it would be. At least that's what I told myself in order to get through it.
At what point did you accept that, okay, I think going the Egyptian school route is the right choice for me, versus like doing what I want to do but on my own? Like what was the deciding?
So here's the thing. We kind of carried on this track. I'd like given my parents a preliminary decision that like, okay, we're gonna go on this Egyptian university track and let's just see how this goes. And then our grades came out in like July, or sorry, late July, mid August, something like that. That's when our GCSE results came out. And then we handed in our results, and I went to the university campuses and I was like, all right, here are my results. Let me in. Like, life should be easy, right? We're good to go. And then it's like, not a single university wanted to accept me. And it made zero sense whatsoever. And the reason
What?
that happened is because I had jumped around so many schools. One of the schools that I went to, funny enough, in Cairo, they don't look at your academic record. They look at your age for your placement. So they saw that my age was too young to be placed in year 3 primary school. And so they made me redo year 2 after having finished it in Abu Dhabi. And
Oh,
so
that makes
I,
so much.
yeah, it's right. So I redid a year. And then later down the line, we were jumping schools again. And I don't remember the exact reason as to why we ended up jumping a year. I think my parents maybe told the teachers like, hey, he had to redo a year. Can we like give him the exam for the year above and see if he gets in? And this was for year 8, year 9 admissions. So I had just finished year 7, the first year of middle school. And I was going into my second year, and they gave me the exam for the third year admissions, and I guess I passed that. So they let me in. So I jumped year 8. So I have 2 year
Okay,
2s and no year 8. And that
I love
was
that.
enough.
But you passed the testing anyway.
I passed
Like
the
you had the
testing.
knowledge.
Yeah. So, but that kind of weirdness in the papers, they for whatever reason, the Egyptian universities looked at that and they were like, 2 year 2s, we only consider that as 1 year. We only count that as 1 year. So technically, you only finished 11 years of education. So technically, we can't let you in because the Ministry of Higher Education is not going to accept these papers. It was a bunch of bureaucratic BS. And so, yeah, I was almost not going to be admitted to any Egyptian university on a like a stupid policy that no one even knew if it would be honored, honestly.
How did y'all get that honored in the end?
So what ended up happening, actually, the last like few weeks, just before, like couple of weeks before September, which is when all the schools start, my dad was just like had run out of ideas, and he was like, just apply anywhere, right? At this point, we've made the decision, so we're not going back. But now you have to apply anywhere. And so I applied to Malaysia, I applied to Sweden, I applied to a bunch of different universities all over the world. Anyone who would accept me at this point, I would apply to them. And at some point, I got accepted into a Malaysian university. And
Okay.
just as I was about to like hand in my papers and pay the fees and get started on my visa, um, one of my old friends from Bahrain called me and he's like, "Hey, I'm back in Egypt and I enrolled in this university and I'd never heard of this university." He's like, "Why don't you
Mhm.
try it?" It was really really far away. I'm in a place called Masr Gedida, and this university is in 6 October, and 6 October is like 50 something kilometers away. So it's practically in a different city, but Cairo is so massive, it's technically the same kind of
Yeah.
area. But it's just a really, really long
It's
commute.
the same big city. It's just a
It's the
different
same big
side
city.
of the big city.
Right. Yeah,
That's
it's all the way on the
enormous.
western side. So
Okay.
yeah, you know that. You spent some time here. You understand me.
It was large. It was large
Yeah.
for sure.
Cairo, people
I
don't
remember
understand the
driving
scale of
for like
Cairo.
a long time and then I think my friends were like, "Oh, this is New Masr? Or like
Eh?
new is it new, no no no.
مصر الجديدة.
New Cairo."
New Cairo. Okay, so تجمع. Yeah.
Okay. They were like, "Yeah, we're in New Cairo." And I was like, "Okay, so it's a different city." And because like we'd been driving for so long, and they were like, "No." And I was
No,
like,
it's just still part of Cairo.
because like I'm
Yeah,
really big
it's
city, like Houston, but getting from point A, like getting from one side to the other, will take you no more than 2.5 hours with heavy traffic. Um, 2 hours if you're really going from like a faraway suburb to a faraway suburb of the city, which is called Greater Houston.
right.
Um, but yeah, no, this was ridiculous because I think when I saw the map, no, not New Egypt, New
New
Cairo
Cairo.
was really
Hmm. Yeah.
to that was where we were staying. Um, but it was so far.
Yeah, and especially with the traffic and everything, it's wild. So, having my family is from Masr Gidea, so I only knew that area and the surrounding area because we'd visit every summer. I didn't know anything about 6 October, and my friend told me, just try your luck, come and apply. And this one school that we had never heard of, was so open to the idea of us enrolling. They were like, "We'll make it work. What do you need?" We're like, "Okay, I've got these papers," and for whatever reason, all the other international universities did not want to accept me. And they were like, "It's fine. We can just go and get this paper and get it like notarized from wherever." And my dad had to end up flying back to Dubai to get a paper notarized and then get a specific piece of paper from the old school where I did my second year primary school
Yeah.
there and get that notarized. Like we had to go through the archives for my old papers. It
Oh
was
my God.
wild. But eventually it was just a matter of like getting the ducks in order, right? But nobody knew what papers were really needed for such a weird corner case,
Yeah.
and so nobody was willing to go through the hassle of like guiding us through it. And it just so happened that this university, maybe because they interacted with so many international students or like international background students, they
Mhm.
were very comfortable with these corner cases, and so knew how to navigate them.
Oh, I
And so
love
yeah,
that.
we were really
Right.
really lucky in that regard.
Staying in this random university that you've never heard of, a better option than continuing down your Malaysian university path.
So at that point, it was just a matter of the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. And the fact that I could end up spending the next 5 years close to family and saving money and just living with my parents and doing this whole thing here in Egypt, it was easier than trying to go and get acclimated in a completely new city in a completely different country halfway across the globe. Um,
Mhm.
so it was just a matter of like our options were, Oxbridge, Egypt, and then it became Egypt, but oh my God, maybe not Egypt, so maybe Malaysia, but Malaysia was always kind of a backup option, and
Mhm.
we were just, yeah, we were super psyched about finally finding a place here, and yeah.
Staying in your country. That's great. So you went on to do really impressive things throughout your college years. You said you were involved in a bunch of student organizations. You participated in 3 MUNs. You volunteered in Romania. Like, how did you get involved in all of these things?
So we, the mindset was we're starting off on the back foot, right? We're at a disadvantage now that we're here in Cairo, supposedly. So let's make up for it. And I knew that I would have to like network with everyone at this university to try and form relationships with the few people who would end up really making a difference in my life potentially down the line. Um, so I just found every single way that I could get involved with students within and within and outside, sorry, of my department, um, to just kind of get to know as many people as I could. And the way that that manifested itself was through MUN. Um, I was lucky enough
So
that the
went for
MUN it stands for Model United Nations, and the idea
okay.
is that it's a kind of simulated United Nations context kind of student activity where you're
Mhm.
assigned to a particular committee from the UN, from the real UN, and you just learn everything that you need to know about that committee. And then at the end of the year, we'd hold this massive conference where you would get assigned a country and you would represent that country as a delegate of that country. And we would discuss a relevant, like current date political topic. Usually it's very heated. Usually it's very, like very complex. And usually it was way above our pay grade, but it gave us a really nice chance to like really stretch our research muscles and
Mhm.
figure out what it means to operate as that country in this particular conflict, right? And it was
Mhm.
very challenging and very engaging in a multitude of different ways. Not only did it help us like speak publicly, which is something that I think everyone needs to learn,
Mhm.
but yeah, research and public speaking. And then it also created a really nice network where you got to know everyone else.
From other schools and everything. I
Yeah.
think one of my favorite parts about Model UN, which is also extremely like difficult to navigate while you're in it, is you don't get to pick which country you're representing.
Oh, yeah.
So if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
living in a country that is at conflict with a different country and you happen to draw that one country
Which
you
one
don't
did
want,
you draw? What did you
I
draw?
did, I applied, but I didn't get selected. But one of my friends, I think, oh, I can't remember. Like her origin was from some country, and like our school got selected for a country that she was like not on board with. And like you're going to this Model UN thing representing that country and their best interests. And like as an individual in this like model scenario, you're like, God damn, like I hope they burn to the ground, but I have to like stand up for them here because that's just what it is. Did you have anything like this happen?
100%. Don't know if I want this making the cut, I'll be honest. But I did, because I was very chill with it back in school when things were not as heated as they are today. But
Okay.
even back then, people were really, like, because I had to wear a badge that had this country's flag on it. Um,
Uh-huh.
and so I'd walk around during the conference days and I'd be like, I'm representing so and so. It was Israel.
Hunting by enemy country.
It was Israel. So I was like, I'm representing the literal devil right now. But I didn't really know enough or care about the conflict back then
Mhm.
to really empathize with it as much as what's happening right now. But yeah, no, right now it's just it's crazy. But anyways, I
It's
don't
too
want to.
close to home.
It's too close to
Yeah,
home.
it's
Yeah,
too close to home. And so I guess at that time the conflict maybe wasn't as heated and you as you weren't as invested in it. But you said you had other classmates or teammates who were more invested in this. And
oh yeah.
how did any of them back out because of it?
We
Or
never
like
had anyone back out.
try to, like secretly try to make like poor decisions for the country?
I mean, I don't think because again, it was a matter of suspending disbelief. So even if you really dislike the country, it was a personal challenge to, um, kind of put yourself in their shoes and really try to see what they are getting out of it, right? And that teaches you so much about empathizing with the other side, even if you really don't want to empathize with the other side. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and it just makes you grow a lot more as a human being. So I mean, I'm not gonna virtue signal me being a delegate of this particular country, but I just know that the fact that we were able to have a discussion, and this wasn't even in like a very difficult committee per se. This was in the I drew Israel in the World Economic Forum simulation.
Okay.
So it was a like far removed more or less from the conflict that we were tackling at that time. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, in a different MUN, I drew Turkey right as the conflict with Syria was happening, and a bunch
Mhm.
of Syrian refugees were fleeing into Turkey and fleeing into the EU. And yeah, that was not a fun experience, but I was in the High Commissioner for Refugees at that point, and it
There's
was
a lot of Syrian refugees in Egypt as well. Is that right?
yeah. hmm
Is that the big majority of refugees, or is there a different country, or
Um, I'm
Somalia
not
or
100%.
Syria?
It was Sudan and Syria. I'm
Oh,
not sure what the exact percentages are, but I would
okay.
hazard a guess it's rather equal
Yeah, because
between these two.
when I was there, that was a topic that was discussed quite a bit in the place where I was staying. Um, and yeah, I guess it wasn't it wasn't a good topic. It was a
Yeah,
bad topic, but
yeah,
I think that happens just with because I'm not a refugee and I'm not really closely acquainted with anyone who is. So my outsider view is by the time you're fleeing, you're already not in a good socioeconomic level in your
right,
country, right? Like
right,
in my case, I can speak for Mexico. The rich, wealthy Mexicans, they don't want to be in the States. They're happy in Mexico. Like they have a good life. It's
right,
the ones that don't have a good life or, they're fleeing from trouble with, like the cartel thing, which is not as strong as it was a few years ago. Um, and then you have this pool of immigrants in a different country, and that country sees them as like less than because it's not your, how do you say pudiente? It's not your well-versed crowd, right?
hmm
The reason
hmm
they're leaving is because they're not, they're looking for better opportunities.
right,
And we still have like good hearts and, good intentions. And I like to think that, Mexico as a people, we're hardworking people. Um, but we're not the most educated, whenever it's that specific pool, it's not the most educated, and it does have like it does bring a negative light towards that nationality because that's the only crowd you're seeing.
that's the thing. When you look at the populations of these countries and you kind of put them into perspective, again, I'll only speak about Egypt because I've grown a lot more
Really?
familiar with how these things operate and these dynamics happen with this particular country. So Egyptians have a notoriously bad reputation uh, abroad for being like illegal immigrants, especially in like Italy and Greece and a lot of the Mediterranean EU countries. Um, and it's because a bunch of the like a majority of that kind of population that's less educated is going on these um you know illegal migration adventures essentially to try and create a better future for their families,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going there as illegal immigrants, and they're like, yeah, if it takes me 10 years to get my papers straight, that's still better than you know trying and failing in my own country for 10 years. So I certainly empathize with how difficult life must be if that's how far you're willing to go. Like 10 years of your life is not chump change.
Yeah.
Um, and they're willing to throw that away and go away and leave their family behind, um, just to secure a better economic future for them, their own families and their own kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in one form, it is respectable. But then you look at like, well, Egypt as a whole is 100 million plus people. Of that, the people who live in the densely populated cities are only about 25, maybe 30 million top, right? With the
Okay.
majority being in Cairo, that's like a solid 20 something million. And then
Mhm.
the other big cities around having the rest of those. So the question becomes like, where are all these millions of people coming from? And they're coming from these smaller villages that are lesser educated and that are less educated, sorry. And it's just a matter of like, yeah, they're going to do the hard labor that these countries don't actually, their people don't even want to do. Like that's the funny
Mhm.
part is in a lot of cases these developed countries, they have a labor shortage for blue collar labor,
Mhm.
and they're looking to these countries as a form of cheap labor. Like Sweden did this for a while. They're like, we're running out of people. We're running into a population crisis. Our population's in decline. What are we going to do? We're going to bring in a bunch of immigrants, and we're going to pay them less, and we're just going to have cheap labor.
Mhm.
Um, and in return for that better economic opportunity for them, we get more people and we assimilate them into our culture, et cetera, et cetera. And but that's like the official channel, right?
Oh my gosh, sorry. This is reminding me. What's that story about the sugar in the water? Um, oh my gosh, like that there was a people I think that wanted to move to Egypt and like Egypt wasn't letting them in and they were like, "Well, just be like salt and water, sugar and water and like you mix it and like it all blends in." Do you know what I'm talking about?
No idea. No,
Okay,
sorry.
never mind. But I thought it was like one of those like everybody knows this because like my friends from Egypt they told me about this story and they were like, "See, it's just," or was that India? Oh, never mind. Forget what I just said. Nothing. I sound stupid now.
No, no, but here's the thing. It happens in every country, right? A lot of what's happening right now with the conflict next door is like a lot of people are petitioning, like just bring them over and they'll blend in, right? They're escaping a tyrant, so they're looking for better opportunities. They're gonna express themselves positively into the economy. They're not gonna be dead weight, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just so hard to even discuss these things with any sort of objectivity because you know that um there's so much hidden like foreign agendas between these countries that you can't even take into account. Like even despite how good natured and good hearted you might be, there are plenty of reasons as to why one move, even though it would be the more humane thing to do, is terrible strategy wise for a country, right? And we
Yeah.
can, and that's the sort of stuff that you get to talk about and learn in MUN. So you just learn that
So,
the world is super complex and everything has a ton of
oh my
nuance
gosh.
and nothing
Yeah,
is simple.
and people are complicated. And then
Hell yeah.
whenever you put people in plural, right? Like as a unit, like is compromised with so many individual lifestyles and thoughts and ideas. No. That's why politics has just like never been like I want to make like one of my dreams is to make a big generational and cultural impact in Mexico. And what the easy I not I wouldn't say easy, but like the first thing that would come to mind is get involved in politics, and I'm just like, absolutely not, absolutely not. I also don't know if I would like be accepted because I grew up in the States, but still, uh, I think I can make my impact elsewhere, and I think I'm going to go the education route. But so MUN was just one of these fascinating things you did. You also taught. Was it in Romania that you taught ESL?
Yeah. So
Okay.
being an English speaker or growing up almost as a native English speaker gave me, like I said, a bit of an advantage when it comes to applying for these teaching jobs. So during my university days, the primary way I made money was to teach English as a second language, and I did that in various teaching centers here in Egypt. But then
Hmm.
I had this opportunity one year to apply for an ISIC program, and that's again one of these UN branches that's fully student led. And ISIC, are you familiar with ISIC?
No, what does it stand for?
It doesn't stand for anything, I believe. It's just It's the name
The
of
name.
the UN branch that is run by students, and it has a bunch of goals, overarching goals, all about, teaching youth what it means to be a world citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that through a variety of activities. And the one that I partook in was called Exchange Participants, EPs. The program itself is called Global Volunteer, but I volunteered as an exchange participant. So the idea was that I would go, and someone from there would come and visit Egypt, and we would almost like swap places, right?
Okay. Okay.
And so I applied to this program in Romania that was being hosted by a bunch of youth from their university. And I was accepted, and it was a tiny program in a tiny village off in the northwestern corner of Romania called Oradea. And it was honestly, it was one of the most memorable summers I've ever experienced in my life. Um, because yeah, the kids were an incredible joy to spend time with and teach and to learn a bit of Romanian through them, obviously, and to make friends there. And then towards the end of the program, you get some time to explore the country. So I took a
Mm-hmm.
week towards the end of the program where I just hit like 8 different cities in 8 days. I did not sleep. I slept on the floor of train stations and in on train rides, which is probably not very safe, and you probably shouldn't do that. But it was a ton of fun, and it's the kind of stuff that you do in your early 20s without a care in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Major? What is that? That's my middle name.
exactly, exactly. But yeah, it was a ton of fun. It exposed me to again a population that I was not very familiar with. I had one Russian best friend back in school, back in year 12. And ever since I came back to Egypt, I didn't really have that many international friends, certainly no one from Eastern Europe. And yeah,
Mhm.
the Romanian friends that I made there, I'm still in contact with. Some of the students kept following up with me like year after year, wishing me happy birthday, whatever, on Facebook. Like it was really, really nice seeing the impact that one could have on a community where genuinely the only thing we shared was like sign language and then a little bit of English and then a little bit of tiny bit of Romanian. And it's just a
Yeah.
matter of like the stories that we shared that were so inspiring to them. And some of
Mm-hmm.
them have even come to visit Egypt now. And I'm very happy about that, honestly, to see
That's
them because I still have them on Instagram. It's
yeah. No, I love that. So like that must have sparked, like that experience, not a passion, but like a love, I guess, for teaching. Like I know you're pretty good at, explaining things because I've learned a few things from you. So, did this impact any future decisions, this experience?
it definitely made me think twice about what it is I wanted to do after graduation. I knew that like I had these pillars of things these skills that I had nurtured throughout the years. And I developed a journaling practice throughout my university years where I would kind of reflect on how each year was going, each semester was going. And I distinctly remember around that time just being very drawn in about the idea of like maybe potentially someday I want to do this teaching thing full time. Maybe it's like an online tutor or um, I just knew that teaching is something that I deeply cared about. And it's
Mhm.
something that I personally invest in, even just outside of my time. I invest in it financially as like a form of giving. It's called uh, there's a name for it from the book 80,000 Hours, but it's effective altruism is the name. Yeah. So the
Okay.
idea that like you dedicate a percentage of your income to specific
Mhm.
causes that you are deeply interested in. And I know that
Mhm.
education is such an important thing. It was an important thing to me. And so I dedicated a percentage of my income to a bunch of different local schools. And I donate that on a yearly basis to kind of help fund those public education. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Um, So after all of your experience and like being extremely involved in school, which I cannot relate to that one bit, graduate and where does your path lead you there?
The path was very rocky from the get-go because in Egypt, every male at the age of 18 is required to enroll in the military service for our country. So conscription is very real and alive here, and most people will have to serve at least a year, if not three. So I went through the
Oh, I
process.
thought three was standard.
Yeah, so you're either one of two ranks. You're either I don't know what they're called in English, but I know I'll try to get a rough translation, but it's like cadet, which is like the lower rank. It's like the askeri or like soldier is the literal translation for it. It's the lowest rank, and then like
Mhm.
officer or Zalbit, which is 3 years. So the cadet is 1 year, Zalbit is 3 years, and typically what happens is um, depending on your education and what you studied at university, they'll choose to put you in a particular position. So most engineers in my year of graduation, I mean, my class, were taken as officers. So
Oh
it
my
was,
God.
yeah, it
And
was
this
a
is not a
year
good,
where, yeah,
like,
well,
it's,
yeah,
I don't know. Like
nuance.
well, okay, my friend family, there's three boys, right? Those are the kids. They were all being recruited and they found loopholes out of it. And so through their experiences, I learned not that they like went, but like, their perception. Through their perception, I learned that this is a really tough period in men's lives being
Absolutely.
in like recruited for the military, and that it's just tough. Like I don't want to say anything bad per se, but it was not seen in a positive light at all.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Anything that I would say about this is hypocrisy because I also didn't end up getting recruited. I ended up get being
Being
excused
exempt.
on a medical exempted on a medical excuse or on a medical reason. So,
Mhm.
you know, I didn't go through it, but my cousins did and my best friends from university did, and yeah, it was not pretty. It was not pretty at all. Like I would live their days with them day in and day out, more or less. Um, I'd go visit them. We'd have calls every now and then whenever they were able to sneak in a phone. And yeah, it was just not fun. And it's not even a matter of like physical pain. It just depends on where you're being deployed for that. But it's psychological
For
pain and
physical
torment.
pain, it depends on being deployed.
Yeah, like if you're deployed on the borders of Sinai, yeah, you're screwed. But if you're deployed in Cairo, you can more or less end up in a very cushy job, like office job. But it's just a matter of the people that you end up spending that year or three with are just some of the. I mean, again, I'm not going to generalize, right? Because everyone has to do this. Everyone has to apply at least. And so most people who go in are fine. It's just a matter of, again, ratios, right? And it's always a negativity bias. So whenever one person is an asshole, sorry to curse, but if one person is really bad, then you're just it's going to paint the entire picture black for you, right? Especially if that one person does something like consistently to harm you psychologically or even physically. Um, Throughout your service, right? Most people get in there, they just want to do their time and get out, right?
Mhm.
It's literally
Mhm.
seen as like, I just want to go and do my time and get out. Some
Mhm.
people, a very minor population, will look at it, the people who don't want to leave this country and are very patriotic, are going to look at it
Mhm.
as an excellent opportunity because it is to potentially be enrolled into the military and rise up the ranks and build a career within the military, which is an incredibly prestigious um, title and place to hold if you want to continue living in this particular culture, in this particular society, right? Most military people have a lot of features and kind of benefits from living here and having the ID card as a military personnel, that
Mhm.
just kind of gives them access to a bunch of different and to a bunch of different places and a bunch of different things, and it gives them opportunities that are otherwise reserved for this population, right, of military personnel. Um,
Yeah.
but if you don't really care about continuing on into that career, then it's just a
Mhm.
matter of finishing your time. And so, yeah, you end up encountering a bunch of people in there who are just not good people, right? They find ways to make your life difficult, whether they're ranked above you or below you. It really doesn't matter, because what matters is how long you've spent in a particular unit, and that gives
Mhm.
that person more authority over you. So even if you're well educated and they're not, but they've spent 2 years and you've only spent a couple of months, then they can make you do whatever the hell they want you to do. And that causes a lot of people, when people who were not given authority uh, are now all of a sudden given authority, they wield it all willy-nilly, and especially if they get to wield it on people that they think are, holding them back, or the people who are evil in society, people who are rich or whatever. Like they look at
Mhm.
anyone who's well educated as like, oh, it's this rich person who I hate because they're bad, right? Whatever. Like, again, I'm kind of simplifying things, but whatever their motives are, it causes people to miswield their authority and their power, and it just makes for a
Mhm.
much more difficult time for people who just want to get through
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds tough. And no one is exempt from applying, right? Like
it. Yeah.
you have to look for exemption, but you're by law you're mandated to apply if you meet certain requirements.
You have to have a brother.
Uh,
The idea of it is like there has to be at least one male head of the family that is able to take care of the family should the father pass away. So the idea is that, like, um, a guy who has sisters only will be exempt automatically, but will be dependent on their parents' age. So if their parents are young,
oh,
there's still
okay.
potential for you to get a baby boy. So we're not going to fully exempt you. We're going to postpone you until your dad and your mom are above 60. But I think it's mainly about the dad. Your dad has to be above 60 years old. And then
Okay.
you get exempt. So if you're an only child or you're the only guy, and your parents are old, then you're exempt. Otherwise, you just get postponed for one reason or another. And the only way you really get exempt is if you apply and for whatever reason you just get.
Okay. Okay. If they don't accept you, like if they reject you. My oh my. Yeah. So, okay, so you're having to apply post college. You get exempt for medical reasons. And you said that it was a rocky start. Was it just because of the application or was it also like applying for jobs and stuff?
So yeah, I mean, the first job I got out of school, I don't really talk about it that much because it was less than a month and the CTO was arrested for fraud. So it wasn't really an experience. It was more
Okay.
just that was a
Wild
weird black
ride.
dot. Yeah, it was just a weird month of my life that didn't really make any sense. It was before I started applying to military, and I was like, let's go look for a job. And most companies are not allowed to hire you until your military status is cleared. So
Hmm.
so any work that I would find wouldn't even be fully legal, or at least it
Okay.
wouldn't be allowed under the current jurisdiction. So
Okay.
what what happened was I ended up applying to this startup, and yeah, I spent a month there. It was weird. They wanted us to work on some archaic old system and to kind of improve this legacy system. And then a few weeks later, we get a call that, like, hey, you don't need to come into the office anymore. And we didn't even have an office. Like, they were still finding an office. We were like going into a co-working space, and they're like, hey, you don't have to come into the office. The CTO has been arrested. There's been a big fight between him and the CEO, and it's the whole thing. And yeah, so I don't really count that weird months. But what happened was when I started applying for the military, I also came across a Facebook post advertising a potential vacancy at a little startup called Transport for Cairo. And Transfer for
Mm-hmm.
Cairo is really where my journey begins into the career world. And it's honestly, it was one of the best experiences that I've ever had. And it kind of sets me off. Um, how do I say this? It kind of ruined all the other jobs for me because it was such a great start. Like it was such a wonderful startup and a great place to start building your career. I was
Yeah, I
surrounded
got to see
by.
the work that you have posted on your profile that you did
Mhm.
for Trans Cairo, and it looks one, it's such an impactful job, right? Like you get to provide transportation across the entire continent of Africa. Like that was their mission, right? And then
Yeah.
also the specific things that you did were like super technical and specialized and uh, like wow. So like, can you go into that, please?
Yeah, absolutely, with pleasure. So TFC is a consultancy that works with um, government agencies and NGOs and anyone who has essentially grant money that they want to put into major infrastructure development projects. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea is that they're a contractor that works with data to provide the kind of analysis that you need and the kind of um, feasibility studies that you would really, really need to build these massive projects in such chaos, right? In a country, in a city as chaotic as Cairo. So they started off by building their first project. They did a tiny little pilot with the World Bank, and it was on New Cairo, and I think it was to map the public buses just within the area of New Cairo. And the idea was like, we want data, right? We have no data, no visibility into these systems here. We don't know how people are moving really. Um, and we'd like to gain some visibility so that if we wanted to invest, larger sums of money to do these bigger projects, we'd know how to deploy them. And so they started off with this tiny pilot, but it really set a precedent for what is possible. And from then on, they started doing projects in Addis Ababa and in a bunch of other cities all across Africa. I came in, I think, 3 years into their operations. And by the third year, they had a process down pat. They were ready to, like, they were good to go on the data collection side. They just really wanted to automate as much of the process as possible. So they knew what they needed to do. They just needed to productize it and put it into a piece of software that would basically automate all the boring parts, right? So when they
Mm-hmm.
started off, it was like Excel sheets and open source mobile apps that would like gather little bits of data, and they would have to cross-reference things and write these little scripts to make it all work. It was wild. But when I came in, they were overhauling the entire system from the ground up, using all of their learnings to really build this piece of software to collect data on the scale of these mega cities, Cairo, and the cities that I ended up working on were Kampala in Uganda, um, ended up working in Kumasi in Ghana, and we did a couple of projects in Cairo and in Alexandria. So to see your software, the software that you've helped contribute to and build, be used on these giant projects, like these month to 3 or 4 or 6 month long data collection projects where you have a bunch of field researchers going out using your proprietary mobile application to collect a bunch of data on these buses and finally give you some visibility into this network. That was wild. Um,
Yeah.
and then their big things, like once they had the data, it was just a matter of figuring out the best way to put it out there, right? So they did maps, they did digital maps, and GTFS feeds. Like that's a very technical term, but basically is how most journey planning applications work. They use this thing called a GTFS feed, and they enable you to hook into that and be able to calculate, like if I want to go from point A to point B, you need to take these buses. It would take you roughly this much time. And based on this current point in time, we know that from our history that the bus is going to arrive every 5 minutes. So it's going to take you 2 minutes. And so it just gives you this visibility into a system that was previously immeasurable, because the way that public transit works in these cities is fully self-driven, right? It's, I decided to go out and buy a minivan, a microbus, we call it, a 15-seater, and I decided to run it as a business, right? So I go and I buy a little license from the government that says, I want to operate on this line. And by the way, buying a license does not mean that the government had a database, because we went out, the team had gone out to them when they were doing their their data collection project in the very beginning. And I remember walking into the office one day and seeing this massive wall plastered with just a giant PDF of tables and rows of all of these different lines that supposedly existed of these buses, big and small. And they had a little legend at the bottom right. Anything that's highlighted in red, we went out, tried to validate, it doesn't exist anymore. Anything that's in green exists. Anything's yellow, it is like, it's a hit or miss. Maybe it exists, maybe not. We weren't able to find it. And it was just a giant wall of red. Like, that database is outdated. To put it lightly.
They need some of your automation in there.
Yeah, so that was before we built the set of tools that we ended up using, and really giving that data then and using that data with the government to fuel other projects. But it was just very funny, like that's how it started.
So you joined this group when they're 3 years into their project. And so they already have all of this data.
They had some data. They'd already done one major project at that point in Cairo.
Okay. And you're tasked to go from point A to what is point B? What is your, like, what impact were you able to make with transport for Cairo?
Point B for us was, the first part was digital transformation. It's just getting everyone on a digital map so that you can do the kind of analyses that you need in order to really improve a city.
Okay.
So I think by the end of my first year there, they had already done the majority of the hard work. The piece of software that we built just kind of helped automate things and scale it up a little more, so that what they learned how to do in Cairo, they were able to quickly do in Kampala and in a couple of other cities in that year.
Okay.
And then the next 2 years, it was really up to us to imagine where we could go next. And the projects themselves even got bigger and more vague as time got progressed. Because at the very beginning, it was like, oh yeah, we just need a data collection project. We need 3 months of data on a public transit system in city, whatever, right? Please go and do this thing. It's very easy. Like, we go teach the people how to use our software, and they go out, they collect the data. And then after a while, we found ourselves with like 6 or 7 cities worth of data. And it's like, where do we go from here? And it started to grow into like, okay, how do we get bigger and bigger transformation projects on the city level? And so that's when things like, and again, I'm not really sure how much of this stuff I can really talk about, but I'll try to keep things vague enough. But the World Bank had wanted to invest some money into Cairo. And one of their major projects was a BRT, a bus rapid transit system. I can talk about this one because it's already out there in public. The bus rapid transit system was primarily built, or a big part of it was built on top of the data that we collected. And a big part of that funding came from the feasibility study that gave the World Bank and the funders the confidence to give that money to the government and to start implementing this project. So
Okay.
seeing that project um, start to get built out and a bunch of the infrastructure improvements that happened as a result of it in preparation for the BRT were very exciting to see. And you could see like the news covering it, like, oh yeah, we expanded the ring road and we're going to build these bus stations here, et cetera, et cetera. And then they decided they might want to ban microbuses, and that caused a bit of an uproar
Oh my gosh.
because microbuses are still the most affordable way that you can run this.
Mhm.
The BRT
And what year
system
was
would
it?
this must have been in like 2021, I would say.
Oh, okay,
Um,
but that they did not get banned, is that right? Because I'm
they did
pretty
not
sure I
get
saw
banned.
some.
No,
Okay.
they did not get banned. They did not get banned, and they would have only been banned on the ring road, that major arterial highway that surrounds the majority of Cairo.
Okay.
Um, but again, like a lot of people rely on that for their daily commute, and it just wasn't
Mhm.
an easy decision for them to make. And thankfully, they didn't go through with it. But I think that's caused some issues with the BRT project, and it's now, I think, in a kind of half-baked state. It's not fully finished yet. But at least the idea that like your data could bring in enough money for a project of that magnitude to get built um, was really eye-opening. And then from there, we did a bunch of projects with RATP. RATP is the metro operator in Paris. They came in
Mhm.
and um, I think they either took part ownership or like management of the metro line, the third metro line here in Cairo. And so, as part of that acquisition or that partnership, they came in and they wanted to revamp all of the stations and really improve them for all the metro riders. And one of the things they wanted to do was to provide maps, both digital and physical, for the riders, right? And they wanted to do walkability maps. They wanted to do a whole new fare structure. It was a whole thing.
Okay.
And we were tasked for doing all of the graphics for that, all of the maps for all of these stations for an entire metro line. And again, like I do this with all of my friends. I take them around, and if I get the chance for nearby one of the metro stations, I go, "All right, let's go look at this map because you'll see like down there at the very tiny bottom, you'll see the little Transport for Cairo logo, and it's just one of those things that you're super proud of. Even though I didn't design the maps myself, but the fact that the data was made available through the software that we built
Yeah.
makes me equally as proud of the final
Of
output, right?
course. No, and I think it's so cool and rewarding in your case, like in this specific case, that you get to see it operate on a daily basis and know that,
Yeah,
wow, like people are having like more of an ease getting from point A to point B thanks to the work that was done in the background that I got to be a part of. So,
yeah,
that's really nice because sometimes there are people who participate in projects and they don't get to see them day in and day out.
hmm,
So, I want to touch on something that you mentioned, which was reducing the world's suffering 1% at a time. This is your kind of like your mantra, and I also want to use these last few minutes to touch on the fact that you value a life of freedom and flexibility where you can collaborate with other companies that are trying to align with this goal of yours. Can
yeah.
you talk about that?
Yeah, so the experience at TFC really opened my eyes to what is possible, right? When business and social good and creativity and technicality all kind of coalesce into this beautiful um, painting that is a job, right? And so ever since that high, I've been looking for other organizations who are trying to do similar things, maybe in the domain of transportation, maybe not. But I've just been looking for people who are as ambitious as I've seen this team be, and people who are very mission driven for a very social good type mission, be oriented towards that. And so that, yeah, it sparked a deep interest in me to really try and seek these guys out, these people out, and try to partner with them and work with them. And I try to do that nowadays through the agency that I work for, which is Top. So a few years into TFC, I built enough skills and um, enough expertise that I felt confident enough to apply for Top Talent, which is a
Mhm.
freelance. They're not really an agency. They are a talent network, right? So they collect people into their exclusive network. And the idea is that you once you're in, you get to apply for these exclusive jobs with companies from all over the world. And
Okay.
the first client that I got through them was again one of these very mission-driven companies. Is a startup that just came out of Y Combinator, and they're working on providing um, a mental health solution at home for patients with chronic pain and anxiety. And it's a VR meditation solution. And the idea is that like through guided breathing, you can control chronic pain and anxiety. And so,
Okay.
again, even though my work on that particular product was primarily on the backside, on the not the back end, but kind of the more team facing side, the more doctor facing side, the provider facing side, um,
Okay.
the dashboards that they use to interact with their patients, the way that the team interacted with the users and held events for them and kind of built their community and all of the ways that enabled further interaction between the company and the end users and the providers and their patients. Um,
Mhm.
that's the kind of infrastructure and everything that I was working on there. So even though that's not as consumer facing, let's say, but you can
Yeah.
still see the impact from, all of the activity that's happening on there. People um, writing about their testimonials from using the service and dealing with our providers and so on, and how happy they are that after using the solution and having it improve their lives. Again, it takes you somewhere else in terms of how fulfilled you feel about your job.
Speaking of fulfillment, this is what you want to continue to do. You want to continue to partner with companies that are going to make a difference in people's lives, and suffering mainly is what you want to focus on reducing. And would you say this is tied into your experiences growing up and, all of the things that you got to experience mainly in the MUN? I feel like that's probably a big portion where you got to be exposed to all of this and how big of a problem it could be, and how much of an impact you could have.
Absolutely.
So like
Yeah.
ideally, what, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, well, I wanted to ask ideally what are kind of some dream projects that you've got in mind that you would love to participate
Oh,
in, or because you're design driven, and I know you've done a lot of front end development. Um are there, some bucket list items that you really hope to cross off and, be able to partner with companies and participate in making a change in specific facets?
yeah. I mean, I know that I was really obsessed at one point with Swivel and Uber. Those are both providing the kind of consumer side of a microbus or like a carpooling solution through minivans. I don't really call it microbuses because a bunch of it's shared mobility, but using minivans, right? It's not just
Mhm.
carpooling. But again, I really wanted to work with these guys, for example, on their solutions. I think that's super interesting to me. Again, in the transportation and mobility sector, I think I'd love to work on an education project that I deeply resonate with. I'm not super picky about what type of education project. I just think that anything that makes education fun and engaging and helps reach as many people as possible, especially if it's affordable to underprivileged communities, is something that I definitely want to work on. Um, I know that I had a bit of that experience, for example, when I took one of the courses from Udacity, and it was fully provided for by a government initiative here in Cairo, here in Egypt, sorry, where the 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 Ministry of Communication, sorry, uh, decided to put together these grants for people who wanted to upskill in digital skills, whether that's AI or design, UX and UI, software engineering, front end or back end. They give you access to these Udacity, what are called nano degrees, and they give you
Mm-hmm.
access to those for free, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I applied to that scholarship. I got it. And I took that course end to end, and it was really really nice. It set me on the right pace in terms of the direction that I and eventually ended up going in, which is software engineering rather than my electrical engineering background. But yeah, I certainly working on with Udacity is something that I'm really interested in. Let's see what else. I know that climate change is again one of those things that I really want to work on, but that's such a big monster that there isn't really one particular project that I'm interested in. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just interested in anything that again tries to reduce that by even 1%. Like if there's anything that can be done, I think we're quickly approaching points of no return and quickly passing those day by day. And it's like, we really need to do something. And if there's something that these particular skills that I've accrued can help us move the needle on, I'd love to be a part of that. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Well, I love
those are
that.
primarily.
I love that as a mantra and as a driving force, I guess, and what you do and finding fulfillment too in your job. So, where can people get in touch with you, Bishoy, if people want to reach out and connect with you personally or work with you?
Sure. Well, right now I'm taking on a few select projects. I'm queuing up my partners for the next year. So if you want to get in touch, please find me at bishoym.com, bishoym.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. That'll be linked on my website as well. And yeah, I look forward to potentially working with you. And then if you want to connect with me personally, you can always find my Instagram at your boy Bishoy. That'll be there too. And yeah, I look forward to speaking to you all.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on this call and for sharing your story. And I'm sure it'll be insightful for a lot of people who are, on their path and looking for some direction or, guidance from someone who's walked something similar than they have.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to tell a bit about my story. And yeah, I wish you the best with this whole podcast.
Thank you. All right. Well, we'll be in touch.
Awesome.